Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Nikhil Kumar. In our previous video, we have explored replication controller, replica set and the deployments in the Kubernetes. If you haven't checked that out yet, I will drop the link in the description below. It's a great foundation for today's topic. Today we are taking it one step further and talking about how to expose those pods to the outside world using Kubernetes services, particularly ClusterIP, NodePort and the load balancer. Before jumping into the demo, let's quickly understand why services are needed in the Kubernetes. Pods are ephemeral, they can be created and destroyed anytime. Each pod gets its own IP which can change. And services provide a stable IP and the DNS to access a set of pods. That means services help in decoupling the app access logic from the underlying pod. Now let's look at the different types of services with the help of diagram to make it clear. In the Kubernetes cluster, we have three types of service. First is ClusterIP, second is NodePort service, and the third is load balancer. ClusterIP is a default type of service. It is only accessible from within the cluster, typically used for internal communication. In the diagram, the arrow labeled internal access, you can see the traffic flowing from the Kubernetes node to the cluster IP service, which then routes to the respective pods. Next, we have a NodePort service. It exposes your service on a static port on each node IP. Typically, it takes port from 30,000 to 30,767 port numbers. In the diagram, you can see the external client hit node IP and the node port, and the traffic gets forwarded to the respective pods. Next, we have a load balancer service. For the cloud environments, Kubernetes will provision an external load balancer like AWS ELB. This forward request to the NodePort service under the hood. Let's now deploy a sample app and expose it using the services. So this is our Kubernetes cluster. Let's see if we have any application running in this particular cluster. As of now, there is no pod is running, but in our last video, we have deployed a couple of application using replica set, replication controller and the deployment. So we are going to use the same manifest file to deploy an application. So here I'm going to use a deploy.yml file which we used in our last video. So it will create a 3 replicas of the Nginx pod. So let's apply this kubectl create -f and the deploy.yml file. The deployment got created and let's check the pods. Now the 3 pods are running for the Nginx application. Let's try to expose it using the ClusterIP. For that, let me create a service file that is clusterip.yml. First of all, we need to specify the API version, and the API version should be v1. Then we need to specify the kind. So we are going with the service resource, so we need to provide a service here. Then we need to provide a name to the service using the metadata name and the web app cluster IP. Then we need to provide the specification. So under the spec section, first of all, we need to specify the type of service. So we have saw in the diagram, we have 3 types of services: ClusterIP, NodePort and the load balancer. Right now we are going with the ClusterIP. So ClusterIP, this is the default type as well. If we are not going to provide any type here, by default it will pick up the ClusterIP. Then we need to use the selector. This will be used to select the respective pod with the labels. So here in the last video I gave a label to that pod is app equal to web, and then we need to specify the ports. First port, that is 80. This port exposed by the service. Then we need to specify the target port, that means the container port. It will be the port on the container, that is Nginx. So port 80 for the same. Our manifest file is ready. Let's apply this manifest file and check the service. kubectl create -f clusterip.yml. The service got created and let's try to see that. So we can use the command kubectl get service. We can see our service got created with the name web app-clusterip, and it's using the port number 80, which is bound to the port 80 of the container. Now to test the service, we need to be inside the cluster. So we are already inside the cluster. We just need to use the cluster IP, which is already provided in the service section. So we can do the curl to this, and we can see our application is accessible. If we are trying to access it from outside the cluster, we won't be able to access it because the cluster IP is only for the internal access. Let me try to connect with the Google Chrome. As we can see, our application is not accessible outside the cluster. This proves that cluster IP works only inside the cluster. Now to access this application out from the outside of the cluster, we can use the different service type, that is NodePort. So to create a service for the NodePort, let me delete this first. kubectl delete -f and the cluster IP.yml. So service got deleted. We can see the service using the SVC option as well. This is the short form for the service. Now try to create a service with a NodePort type. For that, let me copy this file cluster IP to the NodePort.yml. Let me update this. So in this, rest of thing will remain same except the type. So here we are going with the NodePort. So NodePort, and here we can also provide another option called NodePort. This is an optional parameter. We can specify the port with the range within the range called 32,767 port number. If we are not going to provide any port here, it will automatically assign any of the port from within this range. So right now I am not going to assign any port for this. Let me apply these changes. kubectl create -f and the NodePort. The service got created. So let me verify the same. Now we can see our service got created with a type called NodePort, and we can see the port 80 of the service is being bound to the port 32333 of node. That means now we can able to access this application from this port number on this particular IP address. Now let's try to access this particular application using the node IP and the NodePort, and the NodePort is 32333. Let me do a curl to this. We can see our application is accessible from the node IP and this particular port number. Let me try to access it using the browser as well. Now we can see our application is accessible from outside the cluster as well. Now to summarize, Kubernetes services are essential for enabling access to your application. Cluster IP is used for internal access only. NodePort can be used for external access using the node IP and the NodePort, and the load balancer is essential for cloud native external access. I will cover the load balancer in my future video along with the ingress. That's all for today. If you found this helpful, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more content like this. Also, don't forget to check out my previous video on replica set and the deployments. I will add the link in the description below. See you in the next one.